Welcome to another special episode of our Mandatory Mental Liberation series, produced by Baba Jelani Bomani Dembe, founder of Majestic Mind Matters University. I'm your royal narrator, Queen Magical Melanin, for this new episode titled, Navigating Law Enforcement Bias in Our Melanin Rich Culture Communities. The necessity of the Mandatory Mental Liberation series at Majestic Mind Matters University lies in our focus on serving our melanin-rich culture communities. By addressing the importance of knowledge of self to produce greater self-awareness and advocating for our mental liberation, but especially for our precious melanin-rich culture children, our messages aims to combat the enduring effects of generational mental enslavement stemming from the historical trauma of the chattel enslavement of the ancestors. Our initiative seeks to empower us to break free from these harmful and unfavorable legacies and cultivate a deep-rooted sense of self-identity and unwavering resilience. In this episode, the term Black may be used in reference to our melanin-rich people to only express the importance of understanding the mindset of society for that time in history compared to our well-informed melanin-rich culture mindset today. Our melanin-rich culture people who are reading more extensively or our people on the go who actively listen and subscribe to podcasts, just like these produced by Baba Jelani Bomani Dembe, the founder of Majestic Mind Matters University in the Mandatory Mental Liberation series messages with me, Queen Magical Melanin, your royal narrator, for our open-minded melanin-rich culture people who are seeking more understanding and greater knowledge of self, for true uplifting spiritual empowerment. Research has consistently shown that those of us with darker skin tones are disproportionately targeted and treated unfairly by white law enforcement agents, leading to escalated conflicts and mistrust within our melanin-rich culture communities. We have always tried to address these issues with care in order to promote understanding, empathy, and positive change within the society. One of the key issues at play in interactions between white law enforcement personnel and us is the presence of implicit biases. These biases, which are seemingly unconscious and ingrained within white law enforcement agents, can significantly impact the way in which white law enforcement agents perceive and interact with our melanin-rich culture people. Studies have shown that these biases usually result in prejudiced attitudes, stereotypes, and discriminatory behaviors, leading to escalation and conflict rather than de-escalation and resolution. Moreover, systemic issues within the criminal justice system, such as racial profiling and unequal treatment, further compound the challenges faced by us from communities with more melanin. These systemic issues are deeply rooted in historical injustices and discrimination, leading to a lack of trust and fear among our marginalized communities. When we feel targeted and unfairly treated by law enforcement agents, it creates a breeding ground for animosity, tension, and hostility in interactions with any law enforcement agent. In order to address these issues effectively, it is important to implement strategies that promote accountability, transparency, and cultural competence within white law enforcement agencies. Ongoing training programs that address implicit biases, racial profiling, and de-escalation techniques are supposedly designed to help law enforcement agents to better understand and navigate complex interactions with our melanin-rich culture people. Additionally, melanin-rich culture communities' law enforcement initiatives that prioritize building authentic relationships, fostering trust, and promoting dialogue between white law enforcement agents and melanin-rich culture community members should help to bridge the gap and address underlying tensions. Reforms within the criminal justice system, such as implementing effective anti-racism policies, diversifying law enforcement agencies, and addressing structural inequalities, are also crucial in creating a more just and equitable society for us as well. By addressing systemic issues and creating a more inclusive and diverse law enforcement system, we can begin to address the root causes of racial bias and law enforcement disparities. In the past, we have usually approached these issues with caution and empathy, recognizing the deep-seated historical and societal racist factors that contribute to racial bias and law enforcement inequities. By acknowledging the complexities of these issues and working towards meaningful change, we can begin to create a more just, equitable, and inclusive society for us as well. Addressing racial bias in law enforcement agencies requires a multifaceted approach that prioritizes education, accountability, and systemic reform. Through ongoing efforts to address implicit biases, promote cultural competence, and build trust between law enforcement and our melanin-rich culture communities, we can work towards creating safer, more equitable interactions that actually uphold the principles of justice and equality for our melanin-rich culture communities. We usually approach this topic with caution and sensitivity, recognizing the complexities and sensitivities involved in order to create lasting and meaningful change within society, for us as well. Law enforcement agencies, we thought, were designed to play a crucial role in ensuring the safety and well-being of all individuals in society. However, there have been numerous reports of implicit biases among law enforcement agents, particularly when interacting with individuals in melanin-rich culture communities. These biases leading to unfair treatment, discrimination, and even violence, which has eroded trust between law enforcement and the melanin-rich culture communities they serve. In order to promote fair and just interactions with individuals in our communities, law enforcement agencies must take proactive measures to address and combat implicit biases among their law enforcement agents. One of the most effective ways to combat implicit biases among law enforcement agents is through effective training and comprehensive education. Many law enforcement agencies have implemented implicit bias training programs to help their law enforcement agents recognize and address their own racial biases. These trainings often include discussions on stereotypes, prejudices, and how they can impact decision-making and interactions with melanin-rich culture people, individually and collectively. By raising awareness and providing law enforcement agents with the proper tools to challenge their biases, law enforcement agencies can help reduce the likelihood of biased behavior against melanin-rich culture people while in the field. In addition to training, law enforcement agencies can also implement policies and procedures that promote fairness and accountability. For example, some law enforcement agencies have adopted body-worn cameras to provide transparency and accountability in law enforcement interactions with any melanin-rich culture individuals or groups. These cameras should ensure and hold officers accountable for their actions and provide evidence in cases of misconduct or bias. Additionally, law enforcement agencies can implement policies that require officers to report and address instances of bias and provide consequences for officers who engage in discriminatory behavior. Another important aspect of addressing implicit biases among law enforcement agents is fostering diversity and inclusion within law enforcement agencies. Research has shown that diverse teams are better equipped to understand and respond to the needs of diverse communities. By recruiting and promoting law enforcement agents from a variety of backgrounds, law enforcement agencies can help reduce biases and improve understanding and communication with melanin-rich culture communities. Additionally, agencies can implement cultural competency training to help law enforcement agents better understand and navigate the cultural norms and values of the communities they serve. Community engagement and partnerships are also essential in addressing biases within law enforcement agencies. By working closely with community leaders, organizations, and residents, law enforcement agencies can develop trust, build relationships, and establish open lines of communication. This collaboration can help identify areas of concern, address community needs, and create opportunities for positive interactions between law enforcement agents and community members. By involving the community in the decision-making process, law enforcement agencies can ensure that their policies and practices are sensitive to the needs and concerns of our melanin-rich culture communities. The implementation of body cameras in law enforcement agencies was seen as a way to increase transparency and accountability in interactions between law enforcement agents and members of the public. However, even with the presence of body cameras, there are still cases where law enforcement agents are able to escape being held accountable for instances of abuse, neglect, and miscarriages of justice, especially when our melanin-rich culture people are involved. One reason for this issue is the lack of consequences for law enforcement agents who engage in misconduct. In many cases, even when body camera footage clearly shows inappropriate behavior on the part of the law enforcement agents, internal investigations conducted by law enforcement agencies often result in no disciplinary action being taken. This lack of accountability emboldens law enforcement agents to continue to engage in misconduct, knowing that they are unlikely to face any significant repercussions. Another contributing factor is the implicit bias that exists within the criminal justice system. Studies have shown that melanin-rich culture people are disproportionately targeted for police stops, arrests, and the use of force. This bias extends to how incidents involving melanin-rich culture people are investigated and adjudicated, with law enforcement agencies and courts often giving the benefit of the doubt to officers over victims of police misconduct. To rectify this problem and promote justice for melanin-rich culture people, several actions can be instituted. First and foremost, there needs to be greater accountability for law enforcement agents who engage in misconduct. This can be achieved by establishing independent oversight bodies to investigate complaints of police misconduct, rather than relying solely on internal affairs divisions within police departments. These oversight bodies should have the authority to recommend disciplinary action, including the dismissal of law enforcement agents found to have engaged in misconduct. Additionally, there needs to be greater transparency in how incidents involving any melanin-rich individual is investigated and adjudicated. This can be achieved by mandating the release of body camera footage in cases where police misconduct is alleged, so that the public can see for themselves what happened. Transparency can also be increased by requiring police departments to collect and release data on the race and ethnicity of individuals who are stopped, arrested, and subjected to the use of force. Another important step that can be taken is to implement mandatory training for law enforcement agents on issues of implicit bias and cultural competence. By equipping law enforcement agents with the knowledge and skills to recognize and address their own biases, they can better serve members of our melanin-rich communities in a fair and just manner. While body cameras were intended to increase transparency and accountability in law enforcement interactions, there are still challenges in holding law enforcement agents accountable for misconduct, particularly when melanin-rich culture people are involved. By taking steps to increase accountability, responsibility, transparency, and training within law enforcement agencies, we can work towards promoting justice for our melanin-rich culture people and building a criminal justice system that is fair and equitable for us as well. In conclusion, addressing and combating implicit biases among law enforcement agents is essential in promoting fair and just interactions with individuals in our melanin-rich culture communities. Law enforcement agencies must take proactive measures, such as effective training, policy implementation, diversity promotion, and community engagement, to challenge biases and promote equity and accountability. By working together with community members and stakeholders, law enforcement agencies can create a more inclusive and respectful environment that fosters trust and cooperation between law enforcement agents and the melanin-rich culture communities they serve. Only through these concerted efforts can law enforcement agencies truly promote fairness and justice for us. I'm your royal narrator, Queen Magical Melanin. We trust that you have expanded your understanding through the insights shared by Baba Jelani Bomani Dembe, founder of Majestic Mind Matters University, in our Mandatory Mental Liberation Series message titled, Navigating Law Enforcement Bias in Our Melanin-Rich Culture Communities. Remember this, it is essential to honor the ancestors. We have a unique connection to the ancestors. They endured many unwarranted struggles, preserved our melanin-rich culture, and passed down invaluable wisdom through many generations. By honoring the ancestors, we pay honorable tribute to our roots and draw great strength and much-needed inspiration from the unwavering resilience and royal legacy that has paved the way for our present and future generations. Ancestral reverence is a powerful way for us to continually uphold our own melanin-rich identity, heritage, and cultural legacy. Here is an ancient Alkebulan proverb to keep in mind. If you think you are too small to make a difference, you have not spent the night with a mosquito. Remember this as well, whenever you are in the presence of anyone, saying, they don't see color, it actually means, they don't see you. As a member of our melanin-rich culture, you must strive for knowledge of self for greater personal awareness. Always treat yourself kindly and seek to live a totally awesome and gloriously fulfilling melanin-rich culture life. So, like, subscribe, and share this very special melanin-rich culture link with everyone that you care about and that really cares about you and all of yours as well, and thank you for listening. Ashe.